I saw Simon do this video and I felt like, okay, I'm not the only one. It's weird that you want to read a book that you don't know very much about. Is it just the title? Is it the cover? Here are the 23 books that I didn't get to this year. Hi everyone, it's me, Jess. So the idea for this video was very inspired. My sweet friend sent me a message. I was thinking about books that I hadn't gotten to this year, and she sent me a message saying, oh, great idea for a video, 23 books you didn't read this year. And I was like, yes, I've been thinking about that. That would be great. It's a little bit similar to the wrapped TBR that I do, which I will be putting up in a few days. I use recycled Christmas wrap and wrap up books that were on my TBRs over the year and I didn't read, but this is different. And so I saw Simon's video over at Savage Reads and I thought, wow, I have to make this video. So these are the books that some of them are from 2022 and some of them are from 2023. And I give myself a pass on the 2022 books because it's true that a lot of the books that are put out for example, for the Booker Prize and for the Women's Prize don't get to us in Canada until much later than their releases overseas. I have some books from 2022 that I really didn't get to this year that I really wanted to, and 2023 that I was only able to obtain copies of late, or I had to order them, etc., etc. I couldn't get them from the library, that sort of thing. Starting out with this one, which I want to read so badly and might be one of my first reads of January. Briefly, A Delicious Life by Nell Stevens. This was one of those books that I couldn't get a hold of until later, but I've just been wanting to read it since I heard about it. It's set in 1473 and it's about a teenage ghost pining for a woman who can't see her and doesn't know she exists. And I think it's based on Chopin. Yeah. So I like going in a little bit blind. So I will talk a little bit about these books, but I'm not going to give complete summaries of them the way I would in a wrap up. So yes, this I really want to get to. Also in a similar vein, check out 19 by Claire-Louise Bennett. I picked this up early in the year and just, again, didn't get to it. I've heard it's written as a stream of consciousness. I don't want to read the whole thing, but it says, a schoolgirl scribbles stories in the back pages of her exercise book. As she grows, everything and everyone she encounters become fuel for a burning talent. And Claire-Louise Bennett I'm interested in because I've heard really good things about Pond as well. A book that I talked about in one of those Globe and Mail videos that I did, I'll post a link, is The Most Secret Memory of Men. This sounds so interesting to me. It's about the literary world and it's about plagiarism. It's about somebody who wins a prize. I believe it's a French prize from a book that was plagiarized, which is based on a true incident, and then disappears. And then there's a mystery about trying to find this author. Really want to read this. It found it very, very intriguing. If an Egyptian cannot speak English, gosh, I've been wanting to read this for a while too, and of course everyone has talked about it. It's set after the Arab Spring in Cairo. I believe it's a love story. I imagine that will be really, really good. A dark romance. Oh, this just sounds really, really good. And I can't believe I didn't get to it yet. Love Marriage by Monica Ali. People were talking about this last year and I just, again, did not get to it. And I picked it up in the bookstore and just really wanted to read it, but couldn't fit it in anywhere this year. So I'm hoping to get to it. So it's about a relationship between Joe and Yasmin. So I think it's an interracial exploration of an interracial marriage, but I don't know much more of it than that. And I think it seems like it would be really good. They all seem like they'd be really good. And then Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which I know everyone has talked about. And I've heard mixed things. At first, it kind of put me off that it was so commercially successful, but I have heard really good things about it. So I think it's about a friendship and a rivalry between these two women. And I think it's set in the tech industry. Super excited for these. And I can't let them get away from me. I can't let them get away from me. And then from this year, releases that came out this year that I either couldn't get a hold of or I got them a little bit late that I still really want to read. Oh boy. I mean, yeah, I'll start with the ones that I have physical copies of, and then I'll talk about the ones that I don't yet have physical copies of that I'm going to be looking out for at my library and at the bookstore. The first is How to Build a Boat, which I've talked about pretty extensively on my channel. I just didn't get time to read it. This is about a young boy who is struggling with the loss of his mom. He's autistic, and he makes a connection with a teacher, a couple of educators, one of whom helps him work through the loss by building an authentic Irish boat. So I think that the way the story goes is that ultimately he transforms his teachers or something like that. Anyway, I will find out because I'm going to read it for sure. Boulder by Eva Baltasar. This was, I believe it was shortlisted for the International Booker this year, and so many people have talked about it. I've seen it pop up on quite a number of BookTuber's Best of the Year lists. This is about a couple, one woman, it's a lesbian couple. One woman wants to settle down and the other one doesn't, and it's what happens after they have a child. I believe they have a child, and then it's about their different ideas about how they want to rear the child. It's a short book, so I'm surprised I didn't get to it during Women in Translation month, but I just too many other things going on. I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I didn't get a chance to read this during the Women's Prize, and there was so much conversation about this book at the time of the Women's Prize, and I really want to read it. And it was one of those situations where I ordered it from Book Depository. Book Depository shut down. Didn't get my order. I had to reorder it from Blackwell's or something. Yeah, I think it came from Blackwell's. And finally got it, and then it was all the Women's Prize conversation had moved on. We'd moved on to other things, and I never got a chance to read it. So another little short one that I think I could get to pretty easily. In terms of Canadian writers, the one book that I really wanted to read this year leading up to the Giller Prize, aside from A Study for Obedience, was We Meant Well by Erum, Shazia, Hasam. This is an exploration of the sometimes, I guess, the misguided nonprofit helping organizations and people within them. I do think it's about a character who abuses their power within an organization, and that the context is that they work in a not-for-profit organization and that are accused of abusing people. So it's a scandal at an orphanage. It reminds me a little bit of The Anthill, the idea of a book I just read called The Anthill, but which I'll be talking about in my December wrap-up. But this I really wanted to get to this, and so I still want to read it. And then the last physical book that I have is Time Shelter. I have heard mixed things about Time Shelter, but I think it's a super interesting concept. And of course, this is the winner of the International Booker Prize for this year, and I just really want to read it. It sounds really interesting. It's a story about coping. It's like a treatment center for people with Alzheimer's where they can go back in time, and then what happens is that people without Alzheimer's begin to take advantage of this therapy. So a lot of people seek out this time shelter as a respite from the real world. It sounds fascinating. Yeah, it sounds really good. So now I'll talk about some of the books that I either took out of the library and didn't get a chance to read, or just never got to, or haven't been able to get a hold of. So actually the first one is one that I did just get from the library that I heard about recently, called Day by Michael Cunningham. Michael Cunningham wrote a book called The Hours, probably like over a decade ago. It was super popular and it was made into a film that was Oscar worthy, I think. This follows a couple through the year before the pandemic, the year of the pandemic, and then post-pandemic, and just explores the way it affects their relationship and themselves as they go from being in a marriage and then being kind of imprisoned in their apartment in New York City during lockdown, and then what happens after when they emerge. It sounds really good. I love me a good pandemic story. Still trying to get over that, as we all are. The next book that I was really sad that I didn't get to read, because I even made a request for this book to my library, and then when they let me know that it was in and I went to pick it up, it was already taken off to give to someone else, and I was super frustrated by that. But I guess it's my own fault because I didn't get there in time to pick it up. It's Enter Ghost by Isabella, Hammad, and I'm really disappointed that I didn't read this because it just sounded so good when it was described. This story follows an actress, Sonia, as she returns to Palestine and takes on a role in a West Bank production of Hamlet. It just sounds so good. So yeah, it's about actress Sonia Nazar, who returns to Haifa to visit her older sister Haneen. This is her first trip back since the Second Intifada and the deaths of their grandparents. While Haneen made a life here commuting to Tel Aviv to teach at the university, Sonia remained in London to focus on her acting career and now dissolute marriage. On her return, she finds her relationship to Palestine is fragile, both bone deep and new. I've just heard incredible things about this book. So yeah, as soon as I can get it back, or maybe buy it, because it wasn't available here, or it was difficult to get. A book that so many people have talked about is The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I haven't read anything by James McBride, so this would be the first one, but I've heard it's incredible. It's set in 1972 in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and I guess when they're digging to set a foundation, they find the remains of a person and they try to figure out what the mystery is behind the remains. It then goes through this process of uncovering all kinds of secrets of Chicken Hill, which is a rundown neighborhood that is characterized by Jews and immigrant African Americans living side by side. It sounds fantastic. I really want to read it. A Spell of Good Things by Ayobami Adebayo. I don't know why I didn't get to this book. I don't know why I didn't prioritize it, but the more that I think over my past year, the more I wish I had read this book. So it's set in Nigeria and it's focused on the stories of two characters, a young boy and a young girl. And the young boy gets taken advantage of by a politician. That's really all I know about it. And it looks at the differences in class. I just really want to read it. It sounds really good. And I just have heard, again, wonderful things about this book. All the Little Bird Hearts. I'm not even sure if this is available here. It might be available in hardback. I have to search my library for it. I think it's a dark story about a mother and a daughter and a neighbor who takes advantage of maybe the flaws in their relationship. I'm really not sure exactly, but it sounds mysterious and it sounds really good. Yeah, it's about this woman who lives with her 16-year-old daughter, Dolly. And they've lived in that house. She's lived in that house her whole life. And yeah, it's about their neighbor. Oh no, it's a couple who moves in next door. It's about the collapsing of boundaries, or how these neighbors come and really overrun the boundaries. And I don't know. It sounds really good though. I think there's also some mental health themes in this story as well. Julia. I'm bummed that I didn't get to participate in Scott's Book Club's pick, Julia, which is a feminist retelling of 1984. I had a lot going on and I really wanted to participate, but I just kind of had too many other things going on, and I decided that I would opt out and maybe read it in the new year, because I wanted to reread Orwell's 1984 and kind of read them side by side, and I knew that project I just didn't have time for this year. So I'm really hoping in the new year to do that. I think it would be amazing. I have a sneaking suspicion Julia might be on somebody's best of list, but it hasn't come out yet, so we'll have to see. But yes, I really want to read this one as well. Soldier, Sailor by Claire Kilroy. This is another Irish author, and I remember when I first talked about this, it was listed in one of those Globe and Mail lists, and I just wanted to read it very badly. And so apparently it's about just the horrors of motherhood. And I think it would be very cathartic to read this. I'm not sure. There might be something experimental in the way that it's presented, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think she's written like a monologue, and it's dedicated to her son. So yes, I want to read it badly. Rouge by Mona Awad. I know, I've kind of stayed away because I'm really worried that it's going to suck, and then one of my favorite authors is not going to be one of my favorite authors anymore. But then I'm like, it's okay, she can have a pass, she can have a book that's not that good. And then I've also heard people rave about how good it is, so I'm really not sure. I need to read it to find out for myself. I might hang on until it comes out in paperback, but it was really fun going to her book launch here in Montreal and seeing her talk about Bunny and its runaway success and how she wasn't expecting it. And I've read every other one of her books, and I'm a completionist, so I would really like to read Rouge. Notes on an Execution by Danya Kafka. This sounds so good. This is a literary suspense that looks at the story of a serial killer who's on death row, and it's told primarily through the eyes of the women in his life, and I don't know, this sounds like so my thing. It's a thriller, obviously, and yeah, it just came on my radar recently. A couple of these just came on my radar recently, and I really, really want to read that one. I've heard really good things about it. Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. Did not get to it. Gave it as a gift. Really want to read it myself. Heard very good things. I feel like I could say that about all of them, but Tom Lake is also a pandemic book, so that's 2 pandemic books that I'd really like to read. This is about sisters who return to the cherry farm, their family's cherry farm, and I think that a lot of their mom's past gets revealed in the telling of the story and their time together on the farm. I've heard mixed reviews. And then a book that I gave to a friend. You always give gifts to your friends that you would like to read yourself. How to Save Babylon by Safia Sinclair. I talked about this in my recent reading vlog. It sounds really, really good. It's about a girl whose father was in a very strict Rastafari sect, and it's a memoir about her experiences in that context. I really want to read it because I've heard it's fantastic. And those are the 23 books that I did not get to in 2023. There are more, trust me. That's not all of them, but those are definitely ones that I'm going to be looking out for in my library. I'm going to be looking out for in my bookstore, and the ones that I already have, I'm going to be cracking those spines come the new year. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that you didn't get to this year that you really wish you had. I'm looking forward to seeing some other videos like this from other booktubers. What a great idea for a video. Thanks so much for the suggestion to my friend who suggested it if you're watching, and thanks Simon for making that video. I felt less guilt. So I didn't feel so alone in my delinquent, it's not delinquent. I don't want to make you feel bad, Simon. Anyway, it's all good. There's plenty of time. There's lots of books. We can't get to them all, right? Stick around. I'll be talking more about my plans for the channel in the new year, and for TBRs, classics TBR, for my wrapped TBR. Just so many TBRs coming, and also looking at my year in review, just looking at some stats. So there's a lot of other videos coming on the channel. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're enjoying the content, go ahead and subscribe. Yeah, and if you like this video, hit that like button. If you didn't like this video, maybe just keep it to yourself. Bye, everyone. I feel like that's the introduction for every single one of these books, because that's the story behind it, right? I gush. Soldier, sailor,